joining me for today's roundup of African exchange is Ridle Markus, an Africa strategist at Absa Corporate and Investment Banking. And we're kicking off actually with a bit of a surprise appointment in Mauritius, a new central bank governor, a man by the name of Seegolam. And the surprise is he's only 37 years old.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it did come as a little bit of a surprise that he's so young. Obviously got a strong record. But I think what we will be looking for is just to make sure that there's continuity within monetary policy. We have seen the Bank of Mauritius under the previous leadership taking a very cautious approach, cutting I think once in the past years or so. And we will just be looking to see whether he's going to be responding the same way as what we've seen the previous governor, how he responded and how he led the bank. So interesting appointment. Also got the first woman as a second deputy governor.
Sure.
Yeah, very interesting appointments in Mauritius.
But Seegolam, the man, I knew him. I did work with him reporting there, the CNBC Africa, when he was working for the investment board of Mauritius. And he seemed a very sort of calm, very together guy who was quite organised, I thought at the time. But again, this 37 years old thing is part of Mauritius is like, they want to be seen as a young, strident economy. But how is Mauritius doing in the investment stakes? They always try and punch above their weight.
So you're right. I mean, I could not have said it better. They probably punch a little bit above their weight. They're very prominent in terms of, one of the better governed states in Africa. Growth has disappointed a little bit in the second half of last year, and instead of getting close to 4%, we're looking at 3.5% for the full year. We would have had an MPC meeting this week to give us a little bit more detail as to how the monetary authorities see growth and the whole economy, but that has now been delayed indefinitely, so we're waiting for a new date. But either way, I think the chances of a cut is probably still very likely, especially with the weaker growth. Though I think the slightly more upbeat global sentiment is probably going to lift the spirits in Mauritius as well in terms of tourism, exports, etc. Of course, we all look at the coronavirus to see what kind of threat that poses, especially to islands such as Mauritius and Seychelles. But Mauritius has got a very strong health sector as well, so we believe that they will be ready for any eventuality related to that. But Chinese tourism into Mauritius will definitely be impacted because it is a new market that they have sort of focused on. But overall, it's a great economy, looking for more aggressively for new investments. The government is investing more and more to try and kickstart growth and get it above 4%. But they've got some challenges, and I think that's related to the vulnerability to the global economy.
Now, speaking of challenges, to Zambia, where they've been downgraded.
Yeah, so I don't think anyone was surprised at the downgrade. Going from CCC plus to CCC outlook negative. I think S&P summed it up well. I think the market is really concerned about Zambia's ability to continue to honor, especially its commercial obligations. And there was that one incident end of last year where it was called administrative delays in paying the sort of $1.5 million. But I think it does worry a lot of people that given that the fiscal situation is as weak as it is, the debt situation is getting worse and probably in an unsustainable path, that that there is concern about his ability to not just pay off debt but refinance the 2022 bond, etc.
But also, the other week I was at the mining in Zamba speaking to people about this battery metals, of which cobalt, which byproduct of copper, which Zambia does. You would have thought in the future they'd have been looking to cash in on what's like to be a huge market. I mean, like hundreds of billions of dollars a year it's going to be worth an investment alone. Is that going to be enough of a fillip for Zambia to turn it around, do you think?
I think one of the biggest challenges for Zambia is just on a policy front. So we've seen a little bit, how early last year they introduced a new tax regime that's as far as the mining sector is concerned, is a very penalizing tax regime for them. And on the back of that, we've seen mining output or copper output declining 7%. So once they can get the mining policy right, and they have a week ago, the mines minister have said, they're looking at the import tariffs again. So there seems to be greater urgency now to relook at policy. It was interesting that on the back of the recent World Bank visit, that the World Bank was still very, very positive that Zambia can turn things around. They've obviously met with the leadership. The leadership have told them to be very committed, in stopping the accumulation of new debt, etc. So World Bank believes that they can turn it around, but I believe it's going to be very challenging for them to turn it around in a way that gives confidence to everyone that they are on the right track now.
Speaking about challenges and policy, I see Ghanaian President Akufo-Addo has delivered his fourth State of the Nation address. He's saying that there are some economic successes, but also a lot of challenges facing Ghana at the moment.
I think that's the best way to sum it up. What he highlighted was not only that Ghana issued the longest Eurobond on African continent, 40 years, etc., but also the improvement in growth, the reduction in the fiscal deficit over the past few years. However, the challenges remain. Ghana still has some fiscal constraints. We still see a lot of poverty. We still see unemployment issues. Growth is still most of the time driven by the energy sector. So they need to get a lot of things right. They've got a very tough election coming up in 20 December. And government will be severely tested this year to make sure that growth not just remains high, but especially in the non-oil sector also starts to increase, so that more jobs are being created on that front.